guys play, and I think they're going to get another good pick. We'll see if they get to keep it with the Celtics, but they've made some really shrewd moves, Jason. They got Josh Jackson for really nothing. They added Brandon Clark. Obviously, they add John Morant. I think they're going to be really, really bad this coming year, just because they are so young. But they could get something for Andre Iguodala. That's another name that's been floated with the Rockets. Is if Iguodala would maybe go there. They have a guy like Jay Crowder, who some teams are going to like. Another guy that I could see the Rockets going after is a guy like Jay Crowder. He seems like a good fit for them with his game. So I see a bunch of guys on this roster that they're going to be able to get some potential draft compensation for. And I think that it was really smart the way that they played this offseason. Now they get rewarded with the summer league championship, and it'll be really fun to watch this young team kind of grow into themselves.
Yeah, I thought they had a great showing. And it's interesting how they hold so many cards in players that they're not just going to buy out. I mean, they're trying to get something for Iguodala. They may try and get something for Crowder. And it's interesting that Kyle Korver also hasn't found a team yet. I'm not sure if they have to buy him out still, but they've acquired a lot of veterans that are really going to be the final pieces added to some contending teams. I mean, Korver's tied to the Bucks, the Lakers, even the Sixers, where he first started his career. Iguodala's tied to the Lakers and the Rockets. I mean, Crowder, his name really hasn't been thrown around much. He's kind of the good soldier wherever he goes, whether it was Cleveland or Utah or now Memphis. He's bought in and kind of served as a mentor to the young guys. So his name really not as prominent as Iggy's and Korver's, but the Grizzlies do have some nice young pieces that they're assembling, and they'll be a team to watch definitely in the next 2 to 3 years to see what else they can add to that young group of talent you just mentioned. But another team that made a run in the Summer League in Las Vegas is my Brooklyn Nets. Much to my surprise, after losing the first game of Summer League, they end up winning 3 straight. They make the playoffs. They upset the Pistons. They move to the semifinal game against the Minnesota Timberwolves where they bow out. So the Nets had quite the showing in Summer League, but I know you had a bit of a qualm with what the Nets did this week.
So let me start this by saying one of my favorite guys in the league. I just love his attitude, love his play, and was an absolute beast, Jason. Absolute beast is Jared Allen. But why in the world is Jared Allen playing in the Summer League, Jason? This is a player who's established. He is a guy who could be playing in All-Star games, and you're playing him in meaningless exhibition games during the summer. It makes no sense to me. If he gets injured, it's a huge risk. It is a terrible idea to have him out there. While I enjoy that he was a dominant force and it's good for his development, I do not think that is worth the risk, Jason. What say you, Nets fan?
So I actually thought it was a good move because he's only going into his 3rd year. He's 21 years old. He missed his rookie summer league because he had some hip issues coming out of the draft. So he didn't really start playing until training camp his rookie season. And he wanted to go and be a mentor to a lot of these young big men like Nicholas Claxton, who the Nets took with the 31st pick. He was the elder statesman of this team, not by age, but by stature. And that just shows his commitment to the organization. I mean, a lot of people interviewed him and said, well, why'd you play in Summer League? He's like, because I want to get better. I want to help my teammates get better. And it's just another prime example of the culture that Sean Marks and Kenny Atkinson have built in Brooklyn. Jared Allen wants to be a cornerstone of a team that just signed Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. He does not want to give up his starting spot to DeAndre Jordan. And I think he's showing in the Summer League. It bodes very well for his chances of retaining that starting job. He did go down on Monday night with a contusion. I believe it was a leg contusion. And he was held out. So they were smart. But he went in and he showed out. He's gained about 9 pounds since the season ended. You know, he looks like he's filling out his frame. And the rebounding numbers are up. You know he's a good scorer around the rim. You know he's an excellent shot blocker. But I saw 2 things that I really needed to see out of him: an improved rebounding rate and him getting bigger. So I thought it was a blessing that Allen wanted to play in the Summer League. I know it's dangerous. I'm not arguing with you there. But him playing is really good for the organization's future because, you know, this was a kid that fell out of the lottery 2 years ago because of questions about his commitment to the game. Do people think he's not committed now?
Fair point. I'm happy for Mr. Allen, one of my favorite guys in the league. Great kid, great attitude, nothing but good things to say about him. Still don't think I'd want to see him there. But that said, I can live with it. Um, I will say that on the flip side, the Bulls did not make much of a showing in the Summer League. But the one guy who eyes were on was Kobe White, who had some nice moments, looked good with the ball in his hands, had a lot of trouble shooting the ball, but we'll see how that comes along. He seemed comfortable shooting it, comfortable missing, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, it's good to see that he has that comfort level. I think he's going to have a pretty tough rookie year. Most rookie point guards do struggle, so I think he'll be kind of more of the same. Jason, any other thoughts on the Nets outside of the Summer League before we kind of move on?
Well, they filled out their roster, and I thought it was another excellent signing. Textbook Nets, as the New York tabloids are starting to call it. But they bring in David Nwaba, former Bull. So he started his career out in L.A. He had a stint with the Bulls, a stint with the Cavs. But he's just another defensive guard coming in as the 15th man on their roster. And I thought it was a good move by Sean Marks because it's showing his desire to surround Kyrie Irving, obviously not known for his defense, with long guards who can defend. You have Karis LeVert there, you have Garrett Temple, Spencer Dinwiddie, and now Nwaba. So Kyrie Irving, no matter who he's on the floor with this upcoming season, will be protected defensively. I thought it was a great signing for the veterans minimum deal. Do you have any thoughts on Nwaba for when he played for the Bulls? What do you think about that signing?
Yeah, so I actually caught quite a bit of Nwaba. I like his game. In some ways, I mean, he is the definition of your bench energy guy. He's going to give his all, and I would say this: he is going to be an Atkinson favorite for better or for worse. He's a guy who old school defensive coaches just absolutely love. He's a guy who really plays hard. The downside is he's not a very good or very willing shooter, and he's not great with the ball in his hands. So, fortunately for the Nets, they don't really need to worry about him having the ball in his hands. I will be interested to see how he gets used by the Nets. I don't think it'll be a whole lot, so it probably won't be too notable, but he is not a great floor spacer. He's a perimeter player who can't really shoot overly well, so his activity is great, but I think his shooting might cut into the number of minutes he plays.
Well, he's not a guy that's going to want the ball, which is why I'm encouraged. And then another interesting signing that the Nets made, another stretch four on a two-way contract, and that's Henry Ellenson, who spent some time with the Knicks last year. He's a stretch four. He's improved his shooting, and that brings the Nets roster to 16. They have one more two-way spot available, and then 3 training camp invites. Their second-round pick, their other one, Jalen Hands, yet to be signed, so I have a feeling he will be their final two-way. And then they may take a flyer on a couple of guys in camp, but the Nets are set. They didn't sign their 15th guy, Treveon Graham, until the end of July. But I think Sean Marks, after he gets some house cleaning done, they need 3 assistant coaches, they need a scouting director, and they need to fill out their roster with training camp invites and one more two-way. And I think Marks will take a well-deserved rest. And so will we from talking about the Brooklyn Nets. But, Ben, they probably had one of the best overall off seasons in the NBA, so I am one very happy camper.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the offseason, we had one more move that I know you had some thoughts about. I didn't have as strong feelings, but what were your thoughts on this Ben Simmons max deal and the Sixers' decision to give it to him now?
Well, it's getting my 0 of the week. And I'm not knocking Ben Simmons as an overall player because I do think he's a special talent. He just can't shoot. And if he does learn to shoot, then I will be eating crow. Because this deal, 5 years, $170 million for a point guard that can barely shoot outside the paint, makes no sense to me, especially when the Sixers have a loaded roster now cap-wise with Al Horford, Joel Embiid on his max deal, Tobias Harris on his max deal. You have another guard, Josh Richardson, who's huge. They need some more shooting. They need some more guard depth. And they go and they reward Ben Simmons, who made the All-Star team, who was the Rookie of the Year. But I think they should have taken one more season, let him wait and earn that contract, see if he improves his jumper, and then pay him. The fact that they paid him now is basically hard capping the Sixers and just forcing them to stick with this core group for the next few years. And while they're very big and they may pose a lot of challenges for smaller teams this year, the NBA is a guard-driven league. And when you have so many dominant bigs, I don't think the formula will mesh. The Sixers, I think, still are the second best team in the East behind Milwaukee, and they have a very legitimate shot at making the finals. But my problem with this deal is, why pay Simmons now? I think he should have waited one more year before getting that deal. That's why it's my zero of the week.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you. I think the timing is a bit questionable, but I do wonder if this is a little bit of an asset play for the Sixers in that they wanted to lock him up because they want to have him under contract going forward. And the reason why I say that is that I think that the Sixers might be thinking of this as a way to kind of retain him and then be able to maybe later on flip him down the road to another team if it doesn't work out. Because signing him to an extension is a little bit like what the Cavs did with Kevin Love, and it seemed like a lot of money, and then all of a sudden, I mean, now you have to feel like there are going to be teams who want Kevin Love and might give up a first-round pick or two with the way we've seen this market going, Jason. I mean, I don't think it's crazy to think that the Sixers could, if they, even at the money he's going to get, I think they could flip him for a pretty good return pretty quickly to a team who's looking for a star, especially with the way we're seeing small market teams kind of get out competed. So I think that ultimately it's an overpay, but I'm curious to see what they actually do with it. So let's wait till the season until I pass full judgment here. But with that, speaking of the upcoming season, Jason, I thought we haven't had a chance to give too many predictions. So I thought we could just give a couple of our wildest predictions that are sort of off the cuff, sort of unlikely ones that maybe have been going a little under the radar as the course of this offseason kind of transpired. So I'm going to start this off, and I already touched on this one, so that's why I'm going to start it, is I think the Hawks and the Bulls will surprise and be right there for the 8 seed. I think that one guy who I really believe is going to be a stud this year, Jason, and if you are a fantasy basketball player, I recommend you put this guy very near the top of your radar, and that's John Collins in Atlanta. I think he is going to have a huge year, Jason. And along with Trae Young, I think he is going to push them to compete for that 8 spot. So those two teams, I already talked about the Bulls last week, but I think those are two teams that could really improve pretty dramatically. Think 10 wins more next year, which would put them above 500.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to start us off. This co-heat check that we're doing, this is a great idea by you because, you were saying to me before the show, we've been doing so much analyzing and now we're bringing our own creativity here to the podcast. So I'm going to do my first one. And I think the Thunder have a chance to be better than everyone is predicting if they keep their current core intact.
Oh,
because
yeah.
We spoke about Chris Paul. We spoke about Gilgeous-Alexander and Gallo and Steven Adams. But the Thunder still have a very formidable roster behind all those guys. They have Andre Roberson on the final year of his deal, pretty much the last holdover from the KD Westbrook era. You have Dennis Schroeder there backing up CP3. Nerlens Noel backing up Steven Adams still can, defend and block some shots and get a couple buckets. And then the one rookie they took towards the back end of the first round, who I wanted for Brooklyn, is Darius Bazley, who was one of those Brandon Jennings types, didn't go to college, but still got a shot at it and be a roster. I think he's going to get a chance to be a player for them. So if all those pieces mesh, I don't think the Thunder are going to be the tankathon that everyone's expecting them to be.
And this is what I was talking about earlier, is that I think it's going to be very interesting to see how those incentives play out, because I think you're right. I think if they keep everything in place, they're not going to be as bad as people think they are. But the question will be, are they going to actually play those guys, or are they going to try and be bad? But speaking of being bad, this is a little bit of something I covered last week as well, but I think Detroit and Orlando are in for some hard times, Jason. Looking at Detroit, the numbers that really jump out at me from a year ago, Reggie Jackson, my beloved former Boston College point guard. Knew the guy in college. Love